how's it going, everybody? My name is Aero Dono. If you don't know me by now, be sure to check out the information located in the description. So today's video, I'm going to be doing a podcast-like format talk with my good friend Acidic Boneman. Now there's going to be some gameplay up for you guys to watch so that you guys don't get too bored, but I'm guessing this will probably take a while, so you may want to just have this going on in the background when you're in the middle of doing something like, I don't know, house chores, or if you're commuting to work or from school, blah blah blah. I don't know, if there's something that you've got going on and you need something to listen to, you should definitely do so to what we're going to be doing in this video. So what we're going to do is just talk about the Destiny 2 beta. There'll be timestamps down below for certain areas that we'll be discussing, likes of the strikes, likes of PvP related stuff. So if you want to skip to those sections, definitely head down to the description. Otherwise, we hope that you guys enjoy this discussion, and here we go. Awesome, and today with me, we have Acidic Boneman. Boneman, why don't you say hi to the people?
Hello. I don't know.
So today we're just gonna sit down and we're gonna talk about Destiny 2, the beta. So there's quite a lot of stuff that happened during the beta I kind of felt, but also kind of not a lot of stuff that happened at the same time. I feel like there was a lot less to kind of chew on in this beta. So, Bowman, like, what happened when you first picked up the beta? Because like there were a few of us all in party. Like I was live streaming, so I was kind of half paying attention to what people were saying. But what was your initial thoughts when you started playing?
Definitely excitement was one of the first things, and then immediate disappointment because it took me like an hour to actually get into the beta. So it was like a love-hate, like just let me in this game, and then I fucking hate you for not letting me in the game.
Because we keep getting what? We keep getting error codes.
Oh
what the hell was the error code again? Was it like
termite.
Weasel or something?
It was
termite.
Was it Weasel?
What?
Maybe it was.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I think it was termite. Which is ironic. It's ironic, honestly, just because it's behaving like an insect, and we're getting an insect error code. Wait, are termites insects? I think a termite's an insect.
Yes.
I don't know.
Maybe.
An insect
I don't know.
is 6
Depends
legs.
on how many legs they have.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Who
knows?
Who knows?
But like,
who cares?
So the biggest struggle was when we first started, was trying to get into the beta. I got so annoyed when Kika got in. Girl, she got in before all of us. I was like, fuck?
Karma got her though, because if you remember, she got in and then she got placed in a queue, and I don't think you or I ever had to deal with the queue.
No, we didn't see the option for a queue. We just were immediately like, as soon as, because all I did, because I got frustrated, I was like, this goddamn error message keeps popping up, and I keep being told, oh, it'll probably be Bungie servers or something. I was like, I don't fucking believe that for a second. I'm gonna restart my PlayStation. As soon as I restarted my PlayStation, it worked.
Right.
But like before then, I was watching Twitter and I was seeing so many people were getting in super early, and I was super frustrated. But like, I think the thing that sucked for me the most when we first got into Destiny 2 was you couldn't customize your characters, and that was such a prominent thing in the very first beta. Like as soon as you signed in, you could jump on, you could create a warlock, you could create a human, you could create a male or a female. This one just randomized it for you. And you were just put into the game
And you know how frustrating that was for me, because I got assigned, it assumed my gender and made me a female warlock. And what really sucks is that I didn't even realize it until I think I had already put like a good, what was it, like 2 hours into the game? I think we did the opening mission, the strike, and then like 3 Crucible matches. And then I happened to notice that my character's torso was a bit more pointed than it should have been. So I thought,
there were curves in different places.
I was a curvy, shady lady for sure. So I had to remake it and do the mission all over again. And speaking of the mission, what I found frustrating was that you couldn't go back and replay it, just because I would have loved to go through and explore the tower. I mean, that's been home for us for 3 years now, and to see it just in utter ruin was so sad and so like just spine tingling. I wanted the opportunity to go through and like look like, okay, this is where the gunsmith used to be, and now look at its ruin. And then Eris's area was completely just caved in. So it would have been really interesting to have the ability to go back and just take your time to go through. Because I feel like for everyone, when you first start that mission and you go through, your like fight or flight is like kicked in, and you know, you're defending your tower and Zavala is screaming at you, and you've got these new supers that you're trying to get the hang of. And so it would have been really cool to be able to have the ability to go back and look through everything again.
I think when I first signed on, when I started playing, I immediately started kind of, because there were a couple of enemies to shoot at when you first start playing. I immediately was shooting, and I noticed that the sounds of the guns were different, and the feel of the guns were different. And also too, when you're dealing damage on enemies, the text, the font, or whatever, something was different about it. So it looked and felt different when you first start firing any of those weapons off. But the next thing that I noticed was the abilities. Like, jumping around felt really awful. I immediately jumped into my menu and changed that, because I was like, I must be using the wrong type of glide.
Yes. I was agreeing with the glide. And I think the reason why is because you and I both Warlock Master Race, and we like our boost glide. So I went to go and like boost myself toward the enemies, and I just kind of like floated there, and I didn't like, it didn't like register like, oh, I'm not boosting, I'm just floating up, like, come for me, bitches, basically.
Yeah, like, even after a while I realized the boost glide is not as fast as it is in Destiny 1, which I purposefully think the developers wanted it to be like that. I think they wanted to get rid of Titan skating, Warlock hopping, all of that other kind of stuff, and keep everyone running at a certain pace. I mean, obviously, Hunters will still run a little bit faster because they are built for mobility and speed. Right. But it was just, it felt a little bit, I don't know, a bit sad for me, because I'm used to having such high mobility with my Warlock. It's how I get from cover to cover. It's how I play in Crucible. I always dart around and flank, or I just, you know, I start shit and then I duck behind cover. It just felt a little bit off when I was playing the first mission.
It definitely takes some getting used to. There's definitely, I feel like there's definitely a much crisper, is that a word? Crisper? More crisp feel. It's so crispy. And I love it. It is crispy and it is sizzling. Like, it was so just, like, the sounds especially, it just, everything, the feel of the game, the fact that when you jump on something and you miss, and you pull yourself up, makes you moist.
Yes. Oh my god.
It's so good.
The first time I saw that animation of you pulling yourself up onto the platform was so great. I was like, this is nice. It's a small change. It's a small aesthetic change, but it makes a huge difference in gameplay. It was just incredible to see.
For sure.
Yeah. And then and then going through the first bit before you get to Zavala, I noticed I personally was constantly jumping around into the ability screen. For anyone who saw me on the live stream, that's exactly what I was doing. So I felt bad because I was just looking at all the different abilities and seeing how they worked. I was confused about the Warlock AoE until I started using it, the Healing Rift or the Empowerment Rift.
Oh, yeah.
But I picked that up very quickly because I went into the menu to look at it. My question is, if you've never played Destiny, if you've never played the first Destiny and you're picking up the Destiny 2 beta for the first time, do you think the experience is user-friendly? Do you think it tells you what to do, it gets you into the action fast enough? Or do you think it was more so geared towards people who played the first Destiny and knew what to do?
I think, especially with beta-wise, and I can't say for sure whether or not it's going to be self-explanatory for new users when the game actually drops, just because, I mean, obviously it hasn't dropped yet, so we haven't seen it. But I feel like the beta was geared, especially the early release beta, was geared more for veteran players. I mean, we've played since day one, so we kind of already have an idea of the mechanics of jumping, reloading, weapon slots, ability slots, you know, the different characteristics of your melees and your grenades and your supers. Whereas I feel like if you're a new user, then it might be a little a little confusing until you see like your interface. I feel like that's one of the things that they did really well on was you get into your menu and everything tells you exactly what it is, what it does. And with the beta, everything you started off max level, max light with all of your abilities unlocked.
Yeah.
Which I think was really cool because it really gives you a taste of it. So I feel like the beta was geared more toward those that have already at least played somewhat Destiny 1. But I'm hoping that when the game actually drops, that it will be a little bit more self-explanatory.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I honestly, throughout the first bit of it, I thought to myself, unless you've played Destiny, you're not going to know how to set up your Rift. And it was quite prominent too when we were playing later on when I started playing the Strike with randoms. There were people who had their third abilities who never knew to use them. They were using their grenades, they were using their melees, which is great, but they never used, like, there was a Titan who never used his cover ability. And that, I feel for that Strike is super, super nice to, like, if you're good with placement on bubbles or anything like that from Destiny 1, you'll know where to put up your wall. You know where to set it up so that your team's not taking most of the damage. But getting back to the very first mission, so when you hit Zavala, there was something that we weren't expecting. When you first get into that area, you come across other Guardians, and they're trying to defend with Zavala. Like that was quite shocking for me. That was really cool.
Loved that. I think that was probably one of the highlights for the beta for me, just because I take Destiny maybe a little too seriously sometimes, but it's been the game that I've mained for almost 4 years of my life. Like I spent a lot of time with Halo, and then when Halo kind of came to its close, Destiny was kind of popping up, and so I kind of transitioned into that, and so it's always been very comfortable for me, and so it's something that I really enjoy, and I get emotionally, I feel, involved in the story. So for me, especially with how much we all know how much time I love to spend in the
competitive tower, yeah.
Competitive tower, yes, exactly. To see it in just ruin, and just to see Zavala, even though he's a Titan, to see him like defend these civilians and defend this last safe city on Earth, it kind of gives you like this sense of like this is home, and when your home is under attack, you defend it. And I feel like it would have been a great experience to do it by yourself, but it made it a monumental experience to see other Guardians coming up through the wreckage and fighting, and numerous supers going off. Even though that poor hunter I was telling you about did get squashed by a Cabal capsule ball thing. Oh my god, whatever it was, as sad as that was and as hilarious as that was, it really gives you a sense of unity even amongst strangers. So that was a really, really cool moment.
Yeah, and I think it was you that pointed out that there's a deflated the ball that we're so used to kicking around on the tower, this deflated version of it sitting on the stairs. I hadn't noticed that at all because I was just so quick to just play through that mission. I was like, get it done. And it's like I was shocked. I looked at all the different character models and the great big huge ships that were flying around by the Cabal, and I was impressed. I was gobsmacked. And then there were cutscenes. There were cutscenes on cutscenes, girl. There was a cutscene in the middle of the mission where you're transitioning to the next section. God.
I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Destiny 2 is that they've obviously heard that they didn't feel like there was a whole lot of story in the first Destiny, which I mean, that's up for debate just because I feel like there's players out there that they don't really care about too much story. They just want to get in and shoot shit. And then there's other people that they jump in and I love cutscenes just because it gives you a bathroom break if you need one. And two, it gives you an opportunity to really involve yourself in different characters that you don't get to play with.
Exactly.
Like the speaker, you get to see him and your ghost, and even though we'll probably never know who she is, the stranger. So cutscenes are really important to me, and I think I was telling you not too long ago, there was an article that was released about the expected amount of cutscenes that are supposed to be in Destiny 2. And
well over 50 or something, 50 plus,
And that's yes, and that's just in the base game. I think Destiny 1 there's probably between vanilla Destiny and Rise of Iron, there's probably
Mm.
about 45, 50 cutscenes, but it took them 3 years to get all those out.
Oh, there were
Whereas
cutscenes in Destiny 1?
cutscenes? I don't know her. What? Who's that?
No, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's really cool that they're doing that. I'm really excited about it.
And before we got off the tower, you know, you saw all 4 of the major characters for the tower. You saw Cade first. No, was it Cade first? I think you saw Cade first, and then you saw Saladin. And then you saw Zavala, and then you saw Ikora. I think Ikora just yes. like getting all pissy and be like, "You assholes did this to our home, gonna blow your ship up, and I'm not gonna give a fucking jump on your ship too and ride it down like a freaking surfboard on a wave." That was cool.
Oh my god, yeah,
I really appreciated that.
She's such a bad bitch.
And then Amanda Holiday picks us up and takes us to the next section of the mission. To be honest, that first mission, I was surprised at how long it was. It felt very, very long.
Yes, I will totally agree with that.
I was shocked at how long it was. Like, it felt short after you'd played through it, but honestly, going through it, it felt so long. It felt like there was a lot to do. And looking back, I was like, that felt short. But then I played it again when I went to go through and make my other characters, my Hunter and my Titan. And I couldn't say that it felt short after that. I was like, no, this is one hell of a long mission. I was blown away. And the amount of enemies that spawn in as well was quite nice. It felt like there were a lot more than Destiny 1. That could just be me. Could just be the effects. But it honestly felt like there were a lot more people to shoot down.
Well, and I think, too, especially because now, in my opinion, the weapons feel like they aren't as... They don't hit or do as much impact as, say, Destiny 1 weapons, where you could basically 3-shot somebody. You know, it takes almost an entire clip of an auto rifle to kill one Cabal, which isn't a bad thing. I feel like that just kind of adds to that feel of defending yourself and you know, your, like I said, your home being destroyed, and it just, that all plays in one giant snowball. Yeah, exactly. And it really gives you like something to work for. But I think that kind of contributed to making the mission feel like it was a little bit longer, is because it does take a little bit longer to kill even just 2 or 3 enemies at one time, and you got swarmed by enemies at each interval. So it wasn't like, oh, just one enemy here, you move down a couple of, you know, however many feet, and then there's another one. It's like they are just consistently coming at you, which was really cool, because it just made it feel so much more action-packed, and that was a nice touch. But then, can we talk about that boss in the middle and how he can go fuck himself?
You talking about the one when you get on the Cabal ship?
Yes. Oh, honey. Honey. No, you're not doing well, sweetie. Stop.
Oh my god. Speaking of the enemies, can I just say, I noticed straight off the bat, all of the enemies, everything in Destiny, all of the character models, everything, they've been given a facelift, girl. They got some work done. Something happened. I looked at the ammo packs and was like, oh, these are different. They kind of, for me, they kind of stand out a little bit more. They're not quite as faded. I think it's because, from what I could see, the colors glow and they stand out a little bit more against the little wee black outline on the ammo crates now, on the little wee ammo packets. So I thought that was cool. But then you look at the shields of the Cabal, and it's not just your generic steel shield. There's some type of holographic, you know, color towards it too. And even, like, I noticed one of the Cabal can extend his shield out, almost like the Titan. Like, you can shoot that shield down, which is cool, but, like, he can extend it out. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really, really cool.
I don't know if it's so much because of, I don't know if Destiny 2 created a whole new server to run their games and graphics and whatnot on, but to me it seems like they did either that or they just really took their time developing these characters, and they really considered the fact that they included the center of the holographic shield that the Cabal carry that you can shoot down was a really nice touch, just because I cannot tell you how long and how much effort it takes to wait until that Cabal in Destiny 1 moves his little shield, and you have to either shoot him in the foot, in the hand, or the face, and to get, you know, to get by him. Like, I don't have time for this, just get out of my way. So
yeah,
I think everything just looks so, everything looks so fresh. The environment, when we did that Nessus Strike, all of that red shrubbery that's around, oh my god, girl. Moister than an oyster.
Before we get on to the strike and start talking about the Crucible as well, I just want to finish up with the ending mission. The final cinematic in that mission. Oh, how badly did it hit you in the feels? Because I feel like it just drop kicked your heart. Like, just right there. It was like, it just picked it up like a football, ran across the field, and then just drop kicked it over the edge. Like, literally like our Guardian.
I think... Right, unfortunately so. I think the best description that I can think of is like someone like taking your testicles and just repeatedly curb stomping them. And that like gut-wrenching feeling you get in your stomach that just like, oh, I feel sick. And it was so well done, and it was so emotional, and it for me, it gave me this drive of, okay, Gary, I see you, and I'm coming for you, bitch. I'm coming for you, you turtle motherfucker. Like, exactly. Yeah. It was really emotional, and I think they did that intentionally. And I think one of the things that I can't remember if I talked to you about this, but one of my observations was Gaul waits until your Guardian is already there and in front of him before he has whoever it is activate the barrier between the Traveler and yourself. Yeah. Therefore cutting off your light. And I feel like that is symbolic. That was his way of saying, I'm here and I'm essentially a badass. This is an
easy takeover, Hunty. Like, don't get comfortable. Like, I can do this shit whenever the fuck I want.
Right. He could have done that at the beginning of the mission, in the middle, but he chose to wait until you were right there. And I think he did it because he wants to show us how strong he thinks he is, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, it does take some intelligence and brute strength to be able to take over the last safe city of Earth, but I don't think that he has any idea who he's fucking with at the same time.
Oh, no, fuck no. Girl, we came for Atheon, we came for Crota, we came for freaking Oryx, and then we came for the fucking Axis or whatever. Like, girl, come on. We've taken
another
out
one on my hit list.
legions. Exactly.
Yep, exactly. So
another person that we have to just kill down now because like he fucked with us. Like, bitch.
Yeah.
Alrighty, really so moving on from the first mission, now we're gonna talk about the strike first, because we're gonna get all the PvE stuff out of the way and then we'll focus on the PvP stuff. So
my favorite.
What were your thoughts on the strike?
I actually really liked the strike, which was kind of surprising, because when I watched them play through the strike at E3, I thought, oh, this is just going to be another one of those Undying Mind strikes, or it just it seemed like
super
it was
generic bullet bullet sponge fights.
Yep, just straight. I mean, basically recycled strike from Destiny 1, which, don't get me wrong, that would have been just fine, but I feel like with all the hype that came with Destiny 2 beta and the game, that the expectation for myself was a little bit higher. I needed Destiny 1 set the bar, and I wanted Destiny 2 to surpass that, even if just by a small percentage. And I don't think they just surpassed it by a small percentage. That strike was phenomenal, just because there were so many mechanics to it. It felt different than just a normal strike. It felt like it felt like it surpassed that. Like it really takes. It's not just. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's super difficult. Like, oh my god, I fucking hate this strike. It's too hard. It's too long. It's blah blah blah. But it wasn't something that you could just sit back and do with your eyes closed, if that makes sense. You know. And I think that a lot of the strikes in Destiny 1 are like that, just because we've played them for 3 years now. We probably could do it in our sleep. But even on the times that we ran them the first time, it didn't really take a whole lot of effort, I'll say, to complete. Whereas this one was a little bit more, not challenging, but a little bit more interactive, I'll say. There was definitely a lot of components.
There was just a little bit more to do. And
right.
What I will say when it comes to Destiny in terms of the strikes, when we first started playing them, the very first time I played the Devil's Lair strike on which was during the beta, I was in love. I thought it was incredible. I thought that there were a lot of enemies. There was so much to do. I was impressed. But then every other strike in Destiny 1 was very similar to that. It wasn't until, I think about the Taken King, that they started adding additional mechanics in. Like, that's when you got Ala Cool, where everything was dark, where you got the brothers on the Dreadnought. And so you had two different enemies you had to fight at the same time. Like, it wasn't until the Taken King that you started to see more mechanics added into these fights, and it became a lot more. What I noticed in particular was that there were environment mechanics in this particular strike as well. Like with the final boss fight, you've got one platform that you start up on, and then as you get his health down to a certain percentage, you drop and you go to a new layer, and there's new mechanics there. Like occasionally the floor will be on fire, and then when you drop to the very final layer, the final boss is circling the platform, and then eventually he walks onto the platform, gets all up in your space, and will stamp his foot down and push people off the edge. There's a lot more going on in this fight, and in this strike in particular, I feel, than what's ever happened before in the past on any of the previous strikes.
Right. Exactly. And I think that was really well done as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, getting to the end, I, again, felt like this strike was a lot longer than anything that was present in Destiny 1. The whole thing felt much longer. I don't know if it's because you had a lot further to travel, or I don't know what it was, but it was broken up into smaller chunks. Like the enemy encounter was broken up into smaller chunks. Then you had certain areas where you had to defeat multiple enemies at the same time. It felt like it was broken up into smaller chunks, and then it just felt a lot longer.
Right.
To get through. Now, in terms of the strike, was there anything that you felt surprised about, or you didn't notice, or just kind of made a little bit more sense when you went through and played it?
One of the things that I really admired about the strike was that it was like a lot of strikes. I feel like you can go into a solo and be just fine, which this one I feel like you also could. But I feel like if you were to do it solo, it would kind of take that experience out of it. Just because if you have a team that you really work well with, like we were talking about the new abilities earlier, the AoE abilities. If you have a Titan, and in the middle of that final boss phase, when he's out circling the platform and ads are coming in like crazy and he's shooting you like crazy, if you have a Warlock with an a healing rift, or even an empowering rift, and you have a Titan that can put his shield right in front of that rift, one, you're protected, and two, you're now empowered and constantly being healed. So I feel like there's a lot of mechanics in this game and for that strike that can really be utilized well, and that was probably one of my favorite things about it. And just the fact that there was so much going on, it really added to the intensity of that experience.
Yeah, and speaking of, I feel like with the subclasses and with the classes now, they're a lot more utility. The only one that I don't feel is that way, it would be the Hunter. I don't feel like they're quite as utility as the Warlock and the Titan now.
I think that's one of the things that I wish that Destiny 1 would have had, because you have the Nova Bomb, which you could literally get a medal called Space Magic. It literally makes you a space
Right.
magician. Like it's the coolest thing. You just who doesn't want to hurl a flaming ball of void emptiness of destruction, blah blah blah, whatever, at people and just watch them completely eviscerate. It's just, but now you have even more of a role because you, in PvE especially, and PvP, even though it's
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
get
get
to
to
that.
PvP.
But in PvE, it's really helpful to be able to find cover and drop a healing rift if your team is struggling on those more intense strikes and missions. And when the raids come along, can you imagine how helpful it's going to be to have a healing
definitely.
rift?
And I think what's going to be nicer in that respect is warlocks and titans and hunters are going to have to think a little bit harder in terms of these raids, because there's a lot more mechanics that they can utilize to kind of make it a bit more team orientated. And that seems to be, and this is sort of a blanket statement, that seems to be where most of this version of Destiny is going towards. It's seeming to be more of a team setup, even in PvP, which we'll cover a little bit later. But even in PvE, like, it seems to be you get the most out of playing a strike or a team objective, a mission, or some such thing. It seems like you'll get the most out of it if you have all three classes. Like if you'll have the warlock and if you have the titan and the hunter, as opposed to the first one, where it doesn't really matter which character you play. You could have a full team of warlocks, or you could have a full team of titans or hunters, or even just a slight mix-up, or not even at all. You could just do the stuff by yourself. But it seems like you will get the most out of this Destiny experience if you're playing with other people. It seems more team-orientated.
Right. Oh, yes. Alright, yeah, exactly. Which is actually kind of cool because in Destiny 1, it was really nice because you had the ability to just jump in and do some things on your own and then get off if you needed to, or play a couple games before work, or run a strike before you had to, previous engagement or whatever. So that's kind of nice. But, and I'm sure we'll get more to that when we start talking about PvP, there's another side to that coin. But the team orientation of the game is one of my favorite aspects, because one of the things that I like about being able to play video games, especially online, is the people that you meet. And regardless of whether or not it's a game that you enjoy, to be able to jump on and participate in an activity with a bunch of people that you consider close friends, and that you enjoy spending a lot of time with, as our group generally does, it really makes it a lot of fun to do. So that team orientation is something that I feel like is necessary with games like this.
Yeah, and like I ran the strike through a couple of times solo, and I ran the obviously we all ran the first mission in solo.
Right.
I don't feel like it took too much away from the solo play experience. I feel like you will still be able to do that. It just feels like you'll get the most out of Destiny if you're playing it as a team. And if you've got a team to coordinate with. But anyways, we'll leave the strike alone for now, and we're gonna start moving into the areas which we both love. PvP. So
PvP. Penis first penis.
What were your thoughts on Countdown? Because when we first started playing, that was the one game mode I really wanted to try. I really wanted to try that one out because it was different. It's not like anything we played before in the past on Destiny.
Right.
It's a new game mode, new mechanics, new way of playing. I wanted to jump in there straight away, and so we did for a bit. So what was your experience when we first played through Countdown?
So I think one of the most interesting things about that was, for myself, I have not ever really played a game mode in which is basically can be summed up in search and destroy.
Yeah, right.
I'm not a big Call of Duty player, so I kind of knew what it was. It's a little self-explanatory. Obviously, you're searching for something and destroying it, or defending it, or whatever. So to go into it, I was a little taken aback just because I didn't understand right off the bat what exactly was expected of myself and my team each round. But as soon as I kind of started playing it, I hated it. It was awful. And I think the reason why is because it was just you and I playing, and that is a game, especially being competitive, that is a game mode in which you need, I would say, need 4 people.
Yeah.
Unless you have a group of 3 that are incredibly strong, and you get a random
and you can carry that
at
random.
least a little bit of what he's doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to start off, it wasn't my favorite, but it quickly grew on me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like once we started figuring out what weapons worked for us, and we kind of worked on our call outs, and had the chance to play with different people in our group.
Right.
It really became a competitive but fun game mode. It's competitive in the fact that it's one of those game modes that really requires teamwork and good call outs and accuracy. But it's not so it's not one of those game modes that I wouldn't relate it really to Trials.
Yes.
Trials of Osiris, I felt like the only relation to that is that it's competitive and it's elimination game type. Other than that, it's a completely different game mode.
Right.
I like that you can win by either wiping out the team entirely or setting off a charge. Like that's a really neat combo right there. You could do one or the other, you could do both. And then what really made that game mode fun was the heavy ammo. And I think we both really enjoyed getting the heavy, or I'm sorry, power ammo.
Yeah, and we've talked about that and how that's going to be the defining thing for Destiny 2, how you're going to know who the legacy players are, because they'll call it heavy ammo and the new players will call it power. Although in saying I feel like a lot of some of the legacy players are going to adapt quite quickly and start calling it power ammo as well. I get, for myself personally, that's exactly what's happened. I don't refer to heavy ammo in that game as heavy, I refer to it as power. Purely because I see the notifications pop up that power ammo is about to spawn, and so it sticks in my mind a little bit more clearly when I see it constantly presented in that format. When it's thrown at you, and it's showing, and it says to you, power ammo, that's what sticks in my mind. But in saying there are going to be a lot of legacy players who will just think of it as heavy straight off the bat. And again, that's going to be one of those telltale ways of being able to know who's played Destiny before and who hasn't.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that is really cool too, is the adaptation that people will exhibit. And I watched you call it power a lot while we were playing, and while I knew what it was, in my brain, unless I consciously am thinking power ammo, it comes out as heavy. Yeah. But most of the people will know what you mean by power or heavy. Yeah. Because it's pretty obvious. So. Yeah.
And in terms of my personal experience when we first started playing it, I was kind of in the same boat. I was a bit deflated when we first played it because we got thrashed so hard. But it still intrigued me, and it's still in the anal region. But I still wanted to kind of play through with it a little bit more. I still wanted to give it more of a chance.
Yeah, like 2 of us.
Yeah. But, and, after a while, we started playing with, some friends as well, and we picked up how to play it. And there seems to be certain ways that people play that game mode, and in terms of basic mechanics with that game mode, I love it. I think the gameplay feels faster than Trials because it's not a camping competition. It's not a set it across the map, grab out your icebreaker, wait for someone to pop their heads out, and then destroy them. It's a lot faster paced. You either take out all of the people on the opposing team, or you play the objective and then force the opposing team into actually doing something. So it's not a camping competition. Right. It can never be in that game mode. Unless, of course, you want to completely ignore the objective, like both teams just want to completely ignore the objective and just play to kill. But even then, it still feels like, and this could be just because of the maps and how big they are, it still feels like the gameplay goes a lot faster that way anyways.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in terms of the power ammo and how frequently it spawns, it's really interesting to see, your team could be doing so badly in that game mode, but If the opposing team do not pick up power ammo, they're screwed. It is such the game changer. It can be the thing that completely flips everything over. So it's really interesting to kind of see how people sort of adapted to the mechanics in that game mode. And speaking of, I will say right now, the fusion rifle is ridiculously OP.
Oh, it's so glorious. And I wouldn't really consider it OP because honestly, if it hit any, I think maybe its range is a little bit extensive. But if it is a power weapon, it needs to hit like a power weapon.
Exactly. The only thing that I think would have made it a lot more fair, as opposed to using all of the other power weapons, is because, like, your rocket launcher, the rocket launcher in the Destiny 2 beta, only had one charge. You only had one rocket to shoot. Shotguns, it's pretty easy to take down someone with a shotgun, but it still felt like, still felt like a good weapon to use in PvP. So I had a lot of fun sliding around with the shotgun and shotgunning people out. But I think the only thing to kind of balance the fusion rifle versus all of the other power ammo weapons as it stood in the beta, because there's been a lot of changes that have happened. Apparently, Bungie have said there's been a lot of changes that have happened since this build. This is an old build. But the thing that would have made it a lot better was to reduce the amount of fusion rifle ammo you had. Not by much, just by a little bit, but just to sort of bring it more in line with all the other weapons. Because I think you got like 5-6 shots or something, 6 charges or something like that. I think maybe a better medium would have been maybe about 4 or 5-ish. Just a little bit less, so that it didn't feel like you're running around the corner and we're constantly getting shot at with that fusion rifle. Because that happened to us a couple of times. Yeah. We played a session.
It really did.
And there was one person who just had full fusion rifle ammo. No skill.
I think one of the things that was frustrating about it too was that you could pick up one package of power ammo, and that one person on your team could basically, if they're good enough with the gun, they could make your team, and if they were trash with it, they would break your team. It was almost like it kind of gave you this sense of like, oh, I want it this time, like me, get it, and then you just die, and then your team is just screwed.
Yeah, but that was also the huge game changer when you were playing you were playing Countdown. All of your team could have been down. All you had to do was run and pick up power ammo, and then you could wipe their whole team out if you played it correctly.
Right.
And that's what was really interesting to see. There were so many different dynamics that flipped the board in that game mode.
It's an ever-changing and ever-moving. There was always something going on, which I really feel like added to the intensity of it, as well as making it feel like more... like you really had to rely on your team for that. You know, like I think when you and I played, it was easy because you and I could go off onto one, and we could look at rugs, or we could look at market charge point. And if there was no one there, then we knew, okay, like we got to go back. And so it was just, you're constantly thinking, constantly moving, constantly. It was so tactical.
Yes, and that was the word that I got from E3. A lot of people were saying, the Destiny 2 the build that we got to try was super tactical, and I never could understand that. But when you see it in action, when you see that you have to rely on your teammates to help secure those kills, to position yourself correctly, there is more of a tactical element, and especially too because you can't ability spam, which was the first thing we both noticed when we tried Destiny, the base Destiny game the other day when we were playing PvP. There were abilities everywhere. There were supers everywhere. Yeah. That's not the case in Destiny 2, so it actually felt refreshing for me personally.
There were even some games in our Destiny 2 Crucible playing days that or matches that we were playing in, where I didn't get my super, and it almost felt like it was one of those things that could be tweaked a little bit. I'm not saying that everyone needs to have a super every game. No. But I feel like there were a couple of times in which it took a little bit longer than I feel like it should have to get a super. I don't want to get a super 10 seconds before the game ends. And I know a lot of it is related to kills, but when it comes to I didn't really have any games in which I did too poorly.
No.
I mean, I had my lower score games.
No, yeah.
But I still feel like if you're gonna get 18 plus kills in a match, you should be getting a super.
A lot sooner than everyone else, most
Oh
definitely.
yes, a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree with you there.
And who knows, maybe when the game drops it'll change.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. The one thing I also noticed, especially in the Crucible, which is super nice, is that you don't lose special ammo when you spawn. Which I call it special. Yes. It's now called energy or whatever. But I also noticed that it doesn't feel like there's much of a difference between the two type of weapons. You've got kinetic and energy weapons now, primary and secondary for all of us legacy users. Between your primary and your special or your secondary, it doesn't feel like there's much of a difference. It still feels like you're using a primary weapon.
Right. Which is one of the reasons why it's a little bit more difficult for me to adapt to the idea of them possibly getting rid of your secondary ammo upon respawn. Just because to me it doesn't feel like secondary anymore. It's secondary in that it's your second weapon slot.
Yes.
But it's not secondary in the fact that it's a sniper fusion or a shotgun.
Right. It's not secondary in the sense of like in Destiny 1, it's completely different to your primary weapons. They're the exact same weapons, the only difference is they have elemental damage, which I feel like in PvP doesn't really matter. Although in saying, there were some weapons that were energy weapons I felt were a lot more... Like, I would use those weapons over the kinetic weapons that I was given, the primary weapons. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So in terms of this game mode, we'll just wrap it up on the countdown game mode. One thing I noticed is that there were quite a few different strategies that we could adopt or we could adapt to. Depending on how we were playing. One of which was my absolute favorite was distracting enemies long enough so that the charge blew up in their faces.
Yes.
And then it becomes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your whole team dies. If your whole team dies, that's absolutely fine. You just need to kite them long enough that your charge blows up. I thought that was great.
I think that is one of my favorite additions to Crucible or Countdown at least. But another favorite that I've discovered, it's actually one of those like double-sided things, just because it sucks when it happens to you, but it's great when you can do it to someone else. Team, is when you're down and you're trying to res someone, as soon as you get shot, it resets the respawn counter.
Yes.
So you can't just sit there and hold square to res somebody, even if you're getting shot.
Yes.
Like, you have to be, and that adds to the tacticality of it. You really have to be a lot more careful about when you're going to res someone. And I think we discovered in Countdown, you have a limit to how many
revives you've got
or resurrections you can get.
You can't just pick your whole entire team up and keep doing it over and over again, which is nice. I like it. It doesn't drag the game mode out. And then of course you've got your tactical callouts that now show up underneath the radar. Did you find adapting to that quite easy in terms of Countdown?
I did, and I think that is one of those things that really, the game really makes it easy for you to do callouts, because everywhere that you go, you have a location, and it tells you where you are. It tells you if you're in High Street, Low Street, Rugs, Market, wherever you are. So if you suddenly need help at Market, it's so easy to just look up and see, okay, like, I'm in Market. And be able to tell people, you know, and I remember when we were playing Destiny 1, and when trials would come around, we would have to go into a private match on the map
and make up.
And come up with our own call outs. So it really helps with the communication of your team. Granted, if you are only playing with 2 people and you've got 2 randoms, it makes it considerably more difficult, because you can't communicate with those people.
Much more
even
difficult.
Even if you want to join team chat, which I don't know why people want to join team chat. Every time that you do, you hear everyone's dogs and their grandmothers screaming, barking, or it's some squeaker who... No, I just... No.
Well, you're not wrong.
Negative, Nancy.
You're not
negative.
wrong. And that's the thing. Like, it's difficult to put yourself out into a public team chat, especially when you've got people who troll, jump down your throat, who, you know, you've got noises going on in the background. It's a lot more nicer, in my personal opinion, to just throw yourself into your own private party and just listen to absolute nothingness.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Oh my gosh,
not all the
yeah.
time.
Right.
All right, so we'll leave it at there for countdown, because I don't feel like there's too much else that we could really pull apart with that. But, girl, let's talk control. Okay, let's talk control. There's a lot that we can pull apart here. So let's start off with the weapons first, because there's a lot we can go into with the game mode. But let's talk about the weapons. How do you feel that they worked in control? In PvP in general, but also in control?
With the addition of the new mechanics of Destiny 2 beta and the game, one thing that they told us before it even dropped, and one thing that if you weren't told that you definitely noticed, was weapons no longer have different randomized rolls. Everything is straight same roll across the board, which I think is brilliant and not so brilliant at the same time. And I feel like it's really hard to have a 100% solid opinion about it, because we literally have 3 things to do in this beta. There's not a whole lot that you can really judge based on 3 things out of a 60 gigabyte drop come September. So I'm reserving my harsher judgment for that. But right off the bat, I really liked that it was the same, because I feel like a lot of, especially Destiny 1, I never knew if I was coming across, and this might just be a little bit of my egocentrism talking, but I don't know if it was, if that person who just shot me with a 2-shot, if it was because his hand cannon has higher acquisition than my scout rifle, or does he have higher impact or explosive rounds, or, you know, like, is he just a better player than I am?
What's the perk there? So what's the difference between the weapons that you're both using? Right.
And I think one of the nice things about the beta and Destiny 2 on drop is that it eliminates that. It's going to come down to your aim versus my aim, and may the best guardian win. You know, which it adds it adds another intensifying feeling to it. Is you have to land your shots, and this is how it should be. You should not ever be rewarded for bad accuracy. You should be awarded for making your shots count, and if you miss, you die, and that's how it should be. There shouldn't be any of this extra perk business.
Yeah. But in terms of the accuracy, how are you feeling about it? Because there's a lot of opinions on accuracy with Destiny 2 beta. Right to start, it's a little rough, just because I've noticed some of the weapons, specifically the SMG or the submachine guns and the auto rifles, they have a little bit of a kick to them. They've got some recoil. Just a little.
And
like, girl, they put on some high heels and they laced it up and they went to town with it. They're kicking all over the town, you know what I'm saying?
They had just a Tad Johnson of a recoil. Shout out. So, which, that's not a bad thing. Obviously, if you're gonna shoot a gun, it's gonna have recoil. It's realistic, and you just have to adapt to it. But if you're not, if this is, like, let's say that there's someone out there who's like, okay, I've never really played a shooter before, and I just want to jump into it and see how I like it, and you all of a sudden are trying to shoot at their head, and you're shooting everywhere but their head because the recoil is so god awful. It kind of kills that experience for you. But that's just part of the game. You figure it out, and I think every player has their type of weapon that works really well for them. I personally, in this beta, have really enjoyed auto rifles and pulse rifles, which in Destiny 1, auto rifles were probably one of my least favorite types of weapons. I prefer to use a scout more than anything, and I disliked the scout in the beta with a passion. It wasn't for me. So it's just right. It's just finding the gun that works for you and getting used to it, and practice makes perfect.
Yeah, and I picked up quite a few different weapons over the course of the beta. My absolute favorite weapon to use, without a doubt, was most definitely the pulse rifle. Over all of the weapons, I did really like the fire SMG gun, which I probably have posted up on the screen somewhere. But I really, really loved the pulse rifle, the void pulse rifle. That was my absolute favorite weapon to use. It felt a lot nicer. It had full auto on it. It was just one of those weapons that I could get a lot of kills with. Some of the other weapons were a bit hit and miss for me. I felt like hand cannons were definitely a lot different to Destiny 1. Most definitely. That target acquisition is not quite there. I can't figure out what it is in terms of that hand cannon. It could be that the hitboxes are a little bit smaller. It could be that the aim assist there's a lot less of it. I don't know what it was, but hand cannons and close range combat were just a little bit more difficult to do. So I use that a little bit every now and then, but over my hand cannon, I preferred to use my SMG or my pulse rifle. Those were the two weapons that I actually preferred and I actually excelled with. Didn't do so well with the auto rifle. It was one of those hit and miss weapons for me. I could do good with it sometimes, and then I was complete crap other times. So, but the two consistent weapons for me personally, in terms of your primary and your secondary, were the pulse rifle and the SMGs. All of them. Yes. The fire one in particular, yes, but I could be fine with most of the SMGs, except for the Warlock Exotic. We won't talk about that one. That one, that one was a no-go for me.
Let's not bring that up. That Dono Supercell wannabe.
And a lot of other people have felt that across the board. There's a lot of feedback that's come in about it. A lot of people don't like how PvP was in terms of this beta. Now, granted, this is one thing to keep in the back of your mind, is that we are seeing an older build of Destiny, for one. And also, two, we're using weapons from a beta, and we're using abilities from a beta, and we don't have all of our subclasses fully leveled up. We don't have the option to switch between the two major differences for your subclasses. So there's still a lot, and we don't even have the full armor, sets and the perks, and there's mods you can add onto armor. So there's a lot that's still missing from our Destiny 2 experience when it comes to Crucible and PvE as well. So PvP and PvE, there's still stuff that's missing from it, but just based off of what they gave us to play in the beta, that was kind of sort of a lot to go off of, and there were just a lot of opinions that formed around that. In terms of what we noticed, some of the major changes to Control. The first thing that I noticed is that there's now a score cap of 75, and the way you earn kills in this game is different. It's not the traditional point scoring system of like you get 100 points per kill or 200 or 300 based on how many points you have. It's now you get 1 point or 2 or 3. And your aim is to get up to 75 points, and then the game is over. Now that feels kind of a bit more in line with other games like Call of Duty or any of all the other types of Activision games, because I've seen that in other games. How did you feel that system worked in Destiny?
I think I was obviously a little bit taken aback just because I interpreted it differently. To me, it came across as I saw myself getting points for assists that were around the same amount, if not the same amount, as a kill. So what frustrated me was the fact that I thought I was getting, I was getting 20 kill games, 18 kill games, whatever, however many kills I was getting. When I was getting those, I wondered how many of those kills were genuinely mine.
Genuine kills.
In my opinion, my assistance in your kill is not my kill. That is your kill. I just helped out a little bit. So if you're gonna reward someone for assists, don't include it in the actual
the final
kill,
scorecard.
which apparently, exactly.
Yeah.
I want my kill. If I kill someone, I want that kill to be mine, and I don't want you to get a point for a kill that you didn't get. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm not a fan of systems that run like that. But apparently it doesn't. What I will say is that I don't think that 75 is a proper cap. I feel like it should be a little bit more, especially
Like
with how
100?
slow people get their supers. Like 100, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like 95, or 100.
Yeah.
Basically, you need more time in the game it needs to be higher, and I feel like that would kind of solve the super problem. Just because there were so many games that, even games that I was doing really well in, I wasn't getting my super fast enough. But
Yes.
that aside, the cap could be a little bit higher, and I don't feel like it would really be. I don't feel like it would add too much more time onto the game, because I think each game is probably like, is it like a 10-minute game? Maybe a 5-minute game? No.
Yeah, it's about a 10-minute game. It also feels like it goes by a lot faster. Like a lot of the gameplay that I was playing for Control didn't feel quite as long as what it did in Destiny 1. It felt like it was a lot shorter.
Right.
But I will tell you, one of the major differences that I noticed in this game mode is that every time you capture a base, there's no neutral ground now. As soon as you set on a point, it becomes yours.
It's yours.
There's no neutral ground.
Which I love, just because and granted that in Destiny 1, you get extra points if you think about it, you get extra points when you capture a base, because you get points for neutralizing it, and then you get extra points for capturing it. But you know how frustrating it is to work so hard on capturing a base, and in Destiny 2 beta, you capture bases a lot quicker, which adds to the speed and the pace of the overall game, which is really nice. I can't tell you how many times I've neutralized a base and I've gotten to like 99% capture, and then I get Nova bombed. And it's like, oh gee, I'm glad I sat here for 30 seconds for absolutely nothing.
Or shoulder charged, or freaking slammed with the Striker Titan, anything under the sun. So let's talk about the fact that you can't one-hit kill anyone with a grenade anymore.
There are fewer things in life that bring me more joy than seeing sticky bombs basically irrelevant, and your shoulder charge is the trash that it is.
Yeah.
It's really nice because, and you know this, in my personal opinion, it takes no skill to throw a sticky grenade at someone and have that mindset of, I'm guaranteed a kill. It's helpful when it's on your team, especially in competitive modes, I'll give you that. But it is so frustrating when you put so much effort and you really pay attention to your aim and your accuracy, and you're making sure you get those headshots, or that, that quick scope snipe shot, or whatever, to put effort into your kill, and then to have someone just stick you with a grenade and walk away. It's insulting. It's degrading.
Yeah.
I feel personally attacked right now. It's just frustrating. So for that not to function the same way is a really nice touch. Granted, if you stick someone with a grenade and they have half health, by all means, let it kill them. Why? Because they're already damaged.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. So that's nice.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I feel like the focus for Destiny 1 was there was a lot more ability spams and ability kills. So it was really easy to get a fusion grenade kill. It was really easy to just throw up a grenade and just kill someone almost instantly. Yes. And so in Destiny 2, I noticed that there's less of a focus on it. And it was the same thing with supers too. But as soon as someone popped a super, it wasn't like Destiny 1 where they felt invincible. You could kill a Titan out of a Striker. You could kill a Hunter out of their Arc Strider. It just felt a lot more balanced, and it felt a lot more easier to do. So in a sense, there was a lot of things that I actually really, really liked in the Destiny 2 beta in terms of PvP. There were a lot of nicer changes as opposed to Destiny 1. I will say that too, there were some things that I noticed in the beta in particular that I felt we could have worked on, we could have made a little bit better. But in saying that, I also honestly feel that people who do not play Crucible in the slightest were kind of screwed over in this beta, because you only had the first story mission, which you couldn't replay. You had to go and delete a character before you could replay it. Or you had the strike, and I don't feel like that's a good enough, when you've got two different Crucible game modes that you can access every time and replay over and over again. I feel like there's something else you needed to have added in for the PvE people in particular, because I feel like they got the shorter end of the stick with all of this.
even if it was just something as like a small patrol area. I mean, in Destiny 1, the beta, I think we got a strike, we got the Crucible game mode. I
Hmm.
think we only got, I can't remember if we got one Crucible game mode. I think we
You know,
only
we
got
only had
Control.
control, and I think it was only on
Yeah,
one
that's
map.
right.
Occasionally, they branched out and did a
Two.
couple of other maps too. Because I think
Right.
at the first time it was just the Venus map, and then it was also a map on Mars. I think you only had two different maps that you jump backwards and forwards between. But
Yeah.
in saying we also had the patrol area, so you could explore
Yep.
a lot of Earth, which was like,
Cosmodrome.
and
Yes.
saying that was like about, I want to say a good 40% of the game right there.
Right.
Was just being able to explore
Right.
the whole entirety of the Cosmodrome. But you didn't,
Right.
I feel like with this beta you don't even need to open up a whole area like that, just a small area for them to just run around in and do, do a patrol mission in or something, just the occasional stuff you would do if you were playing PvE.
Right. And I think that is something that would have been really, really nice to have, even for myself, who I could live, eat, breathe Crucible. But sometimes there's times when you feel like, I don't really feel like putting so much effort into killing people. I would rather just go and explore, and that is part of the fun of Destiny is seeing these massive immersive worlds that they put in. And I really think that they're very smart in what they do, and that they're waiting until actual drop, because this game is going to be so gigantic when it drops. And they've already talked about the additions to Patrol that they're putting in with the like mini strikes that you do, and the different areas that you can go to. And so I feel like maybe their hesitation with giving us that was justified, in that they didn't want to ruin anything that they might consider a really good surprise or a really good experience that should be experienced and invested in once you actually have the game. That being said, for people that were using the beta as like, I'm not really sure if I'm going to play this game when it drops, so I'll just get the beta and just kind of see how I like it.
And just try it out,
like
see how we go.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't do it justice. They should have given us more for the people that aren't already invested in this game.
This is the age we're in now. You use your beta for your video games as a huge marketing platform for your game. So when it comes out, people have a better understanding of what they're going to be getting, and they're more excited. Whereas I feel like the biggest problem with this beta that's happened so far is that it didn't do that. It wasn't designed to do that. It was so very small of a sliver. It doesn't just, like, you're right, I feel like it wouldn't justify what's going to come out in the main game. There's still a lot that's missing. In the very first one, I'm pretty sure you could actually buy stuff from vendors. When we had the first Destiny 1 beta, you could actually go to the gunsmith. You could see guns that you could get, but you weren't allowed to purchase them. So it teased so much more, and it was like, this is stuff that you're gonna be able to do, but you can't do right now. There's not so much of that with this Destiny beta. I think the main focus was the cinematic stuff and showing you that they've improved upon the story gameplay, the showcase of this new 4v4 PvP system and how it works, which, in my own personal opinion, I like 4v4, but in saying I would still like the option for 6v6. I feel like 4v4 is it becomes tactical, but it doesn't become, relaxing. Suddenly there's a little bit more stress and pressure on playing a PvP experience. So it's not quite that, we'll just jump into the Crucible, we'll just muck around, we'll fool around, we'll play with people. It doesn't feel quite as lighthearted as it once did. So I think the options for 4v4, 3v3, and, 1v6 or whatever, free-for-alls and all that other kind of stuff. Like, I feel like those options sort of should have carried across to Destiny 2. But in saying, with how they've designed it, I'm not sure how it would fit in. I'm just saying that I would have liked to have seen it. In saying, though, there were a lot of people that got access to the closed beta. I didn't think that there were going to be that many people, but we had for a split-second queues, but it was all sorted. Bungie knew what was going to happen. It didn't take long for everyone to start playing, so that was really good. But I was anticipating that there was going to be a bit of a struggle to get in and play. That's one of the things that I had in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think we all kind of did actually too, especially after Rise of Iron.
Yep.
Rise of Iron was terrible. You couldn't get in for at
Rise
least
of
the first
Iron
4
was
hours
just-
of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love the story of Rise of Iron, and that final mission was like probably one of the best missions that we got in the entirety of Destiny 1. It was just so intense and just, oh my god, it was just really well done. Music was fantastic. And then after that it was just kind of like, okay, what now? But then they kind of recovered a little bit when they brought in like the weekly featured raids that, you know, you could get exotic primaries with elemental damage. We all know how much we miss that. Like there was a lot of stuff that they kind of gave us, which was decent for the amount of time that they wanted us to wait until Destiny 2 beta.
Destiny 2,
and now Destiny 2 beta is here, and it's practically wrapping up now. And now I need Destiny 2. I'm
agreed. I think it's gonna swing this way. If you've played Destiny 1 and you've seen snippets of Destiny 2, you're gonna feel a bit more inclined to buying Destiny 2. And saying though, depending on your experience, if you enjoyed the first Destiny and if you were able to stick it through all the way through to the end content for everything that came out for Destiny 1, not including vanilla, like not just vanilla, including everything, all the DLCs and everything, then you will probably enjoy Destiny 2. It's going to be that case. And just to sort of sum up in terms of the beta, I think it was a great idea. It was nice to see. Wasn't entirely happy that we got to see the social space in such a short amount of time. Would have been nicer to have extended it and to have showcased the vendors, but not include stuff that you could pick. Like you could look at what they have to sell, but not be able to pick up those weapons or anything. I don't know. I just feel like there was a lot of missed opportunity here with this beta, but I am looking forward to what Bungie are going to do when Destiny 2 drops within the next 6 weeks. We're only 6 weeks away from release. That's crazy.
Right.
But insane. I think we're both in the same boat. We're like, 6 weeks is too long.
Oh, I didn't even realize it was 6 weeks. Now I have, let's see, 6 weeks. That's like 30 something day. I don't know. I'm bad at math. I'm not even figuring that out. Whatever. It's only 6 weeks away, and I'm excited. I'm stoked. The beta could have been a lot more, but it was still soul satisfying. So I'm content.
Well, anyways, we will leave it there. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining in on our conversation. Great big huge thank you to Acidic Boneman for joining me in on this conversation and helping me to pull apart this beta and turn it inside out. Is there one final thing that you want to leave our listeners with today?
Thanks for letting me stop by. It's always so much fun to have a conversation with someone else who's just as passionate about a video game as you are, even though I don't feel like anyone is really as passionate as I am. But it was a lot of fun. I loved nitpicking and talking about it, and Destiny is great, and I'm excited for what's to come. I'm excited for the relationships that I've built based on this game and the ones that I'm going to build when Destiny 2 drops. So thanks so much for having me.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for joining in and for being a part of this. It's always a pleasure to talk with another passionate Destiny player about everything that's going on in the game. But also too, I think it's also because you and I both have such unique perspectives on this game. It's always really, really fun to talk with you about this kind of stuff.
Well, and neither of us never stop talking, so it's great to have a conversation where neither of us stop talking.
Alrighty, so we're gonna end it there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye.